So, the past few months, I've been criticizing Donald Trump quite a bit, and that is deserved criticism. I don't take any of it back. I think he's a despicable human being. But I've talked enough about him, and we have another problem that is a greater problem because it's the more likely one, and that is Hillary Clinton. Now, there are a couple things that set her apart a tiny bit from Trump. A tiny bit. But the reality is that with Clinton, you get more war. She has been part of the orchestration of the bombing in the Middle East, and she sold arms to Saudi Arabia, so she has a very, very bad foreign policy record. And that's going to continue. Don't expect that to change. She is not for deregulation of Wall Street. She's in bed with Wall Street. She never will be. They came out and said, don't pick Elizabeth Warren as VP. That's a pretty big indicator that, yeah, she's tight with Wall Street. So don't expect that to change. She is definitely for TPP. Don't believe her. She is not against the TPP. Not a chance. Her husband passed NAFTA, and now she's going to pass the TPP. Look at that. What a coincidence. Unless, of course, that is Obama gets to it first, which, the way things are going, that is possible. But, oh, and she's for fracking. So we'll get more climate change. And she gets money from the fossil fuel companies. So there we go. More climate change with Hillary Clinton. So I don't see much of a difference from Donald Trump. And I understand Donald Trump has some over-the-top things that I don't think he could even get done, like the deporting illegal immigrants. I don't think he could get that done. I don't think he could. I think there would be too much outcry against it, and I think he's incompetent. I think Mike Pence would take over, and I think it could be very bad. Don't get me wrong. But my point is, Hillary Clinton's not better. It's the same thing. There's no difference, really. There's slight risk differences. That's literally about it. So what I'm trying to, I guess not preach, but just express and communicate is we need to think outside the box. We got two candidates here, and these candidates are horrible. And this is the same system we've been in for decades and decades. And since the 50s and 60s, we have had absolute shit candidates, and that is just a fact. With the exception of Jimmy Carter, who, even though he's done a lot of good things since then, he's had his problems during his presidency. Since basically Nixon, and you can look back, and I'm not a genius by any means on this, but you can name me a good president we had, and I'd be shocked. We haven't had any good presidents. It's gotten worse and worse since the 70s, and it's only going to continue to get worse. They're just going to continue to push further and further away from the people. And the more that happens, the more we're going to have to outcry. So I say we have to start maybe looking at third party. You know, I know people, when you say Jill Stein, they think, oh, she's crazy, she doesn't know how the economy works. She wants to do a lot of crazy things. She's a radical. She's too liberal. There's a lot of things people say. I mean, she's only a Harvard, just a Harvard doctor. No big deal. She's not smart or anything. And there's one thing in particular. She wants to cancel the student debt. And you often hear people say, even really progressive-minded people, they'll say, well, that's just not realistic. That's just not realistic. Well, that'll crash the economy. That'll be bad. Well, how will that crash the economy? After the 2008 economy crashed from the fraudulent behavior on Wall Street, the U.S. government bailed them out to a tune of over $1 trillion, which is around what it would be to do that, to cancel all student debt that exists today in America. And the economy did not crash again after the crash occurred. It just didn't. It actually it's been getting a little bit better since then. Incrementally. Which is what you expect anyway. So it had really no effect. So to say that it's unrealistic is just, you can't think that way. We have to start thinking outside the box. And as far as erasing the debt goes, that's about what you value in society. So in our society, when the economy crashed in 2008, I mean, we had the Occupy movement, but there wasn't a huge public uprising enough to actually get change done. But when you try and implement, things, or when you try and say that, hey, let's cancel student loan debt, no, it's unrealistic, completely unrealistic. Now, this is not the election for third party because they're not going to win. There's not a chance. It's not a chance. But we have to. 4 years is going to come up, and we need. It's when you have people who are uprising, who are angry. There's usually two types of leaders that arise. At least if you look historically, you have revolutionists, people who are fighting for the good of the common people and really want to do good. You had Bernie Sanders as the symbol of that in this election. And then you have fascists and people who want to control and just have power, and that's just the psychological motivations they have found themselves in. And Donald Trump is obviously a representation of that. And Donald Trump is incompetent, and he's the type of person that can't get anything done, doesn't know how to speak really well. So he wasn't really able to take control of the moment, because there's a lot of people who are upset and angry at the establishment and who want change really, really bad, that they'll go to vote for Donald Trump. But next time, imagine another Republican or Democrat, just another fascist person looking for power like that, because they know the moment, and they're a little bit smoother than Donald Trump. They're a little bit smarter. I mean, I don't want to imagine a scenario like that. So we really have to start thinking outside the box. And I mean this as a people of a country. Like, this is a serious time. And there's a lot going on around the world. And, with all the money Hillary Clinton gets, all the horrible policies she has, she's a little bit better than Donald Trump. She's competent. There's a few things that she is for that are decent. She has done some good things in the past, along with some very, very bad things. The bad things outweigh the good things by far, because she's supposed to be one of our quote-unquote leaders. She hasn't done much of actual leading. So I say Jill Stein, and that's the person who I unfortunately cannot vote. I didn't register in time, and I just didn't think of it, because for the longest time I was not even going to vote at all, because I didn't really want to. I thought this election was just screwed, completely effed. But I recently decided that I wanted to vote, but I can't. So if I had to, I would vote for Jill Stein. She definitely represents my views the most. And personally, I believe the way you actually implement change is through activism. You got to start with activism, and politically, it helps tremendously if you can get some good people in power. Starting locally might be a good thing. Electing, different mayors who can then become senators and governors, and those are important things. That's how this revolution begins. School boards of education, those type of things. Start locally, expand outwards. Maybe presidency. That it's an important thing to pay attention to. That they have some important powers, but you have to look at the whole spectrum. Activism is really important, and the way I look at it is it's time to make a stand against the establishment, because they've been in power for too long. And it's the same establishment for thousands and thousands of years. What we have today is not any different, really. In actual theory, it's really no different than kings and queens and what we've had for thousands of years. Rulers, empires, monarchs. I mean, it's modernized. It's more sly. It's covert. and it's much more modernized. Obviously, there's much better. It's much better to have lived now than thousands of years ago. I'm not trying to say that that's not the case, but really, in principle, it's the exact same, and we need to step up against this establishment, this ruling elite class that's ruled the common people for so long, but not anymore. We have the age of information. Us millennials have been given a gift to be born at this time in human history. Let's take advantage of it. On the real.